The hotel lobby exploded in chaos. Jennifer's shrill voice filled the air as she argued with the front desk. Michael slammed his fist on the counter. "You mean the card doesn't work anymore?" For the first time in my life, the despair wasn't mine. It was theirs. And as they panicked, I sat quietly in the corner, clutching 5 cold keys in my hand. 301, 302, 303, 304, 305. They thought they'd abandoned me at the hotel, not knowing I'd paid for them all. That night, I decided, this time I wouldn't be the victim. 3 weeks ago, I whispered, letting the memory pull me back. Michael called me on a Tuesday afternoon. His voice was sugary, the way he always was when he needed something. "Mom," he said, "I have a great idea. How about we go on a trip like old times? A week at the beach, the kids playing in the pool, dinner together. Does that sound great?" My hands trembled as I picked up the receiver. I had been alone for 4 years since my husband died. Most days were spent in quiet routine. A pot of coffee, a rocking chair by the window, the hum of the refrigerator. But that afternoon, his words were like sunlight flooding the dark room. "Yes, Michael," I said softly. Sounds wonderful." He gasped. "I know you'll like it. But there's one little detail. The hotel only requires one person to book. Can you put your name down here? Don't worry. We'll transfer the money back to each other after you confirm." A flicker of hesitation crept into my chest. I signed the papers. I guaranteed the loans. I filled out the forms. And I kept telling myself, this time it would be different. This time for the family. I agreed. The next day, I called the Golden Palms Hotel. 5 family suites, the receptionist confirmed. 7 nights, 12 guests. Total cost, $4,200. I held my breath. $4,200. My monthly pension was $800. 8 months of selling pies in the town square, sewing late into the night, putting money in the cookie jar behind the can of canned beans. And it still wasn't enough. That night, I stared at my wedding ring, the small diamond on it catching the light. 42 years of marriage imprinted on that round gold band. The next morning, I took it off and took it to Mr. Thompson's jewelry store. He looked at it through the band, twisting it slightly. "I can give you $800, he said. My throat tightened. $800 for life. I wanted to scream. Instead, I whispered, "Deal." That was the beginning of my sacrifice. In the weeks that followed, I pinched pennies like a soldier rationing food during a siege. I lowered the heat in my little house. I ate less meat. I walked instead of taking the bus. Each time I counted another dollar in the tin, I told myself, it will be worth it. They'll see how much I love them. They'll finally want me around again. At night, I sat at the kitchen table and wrote in a worn journal. Someday soon, I scribbled, I'll sit at a table where they all laugh and talk, and I won't feel like an outsider anymore. The ink blurred when my eyes filled with tears. The morning of the trip, I put on my light blue dress, the one Robert once said made me look younger. I carefully pinned on my mother's pearl necklace. I wanted to look nice for the family photos I imagined we'd take by the pool. When Michael pulled up in his car, Jennifer sat in the passenger seat scrolling through her phone. My 2 youngest grandchildren in the back were absorbed in a tablet. "Good morning, family," I said brightly as I slid in. Only the children answered. Jennifer didn't even look up. "Can you text Sarah?" Michael asked her. "Make sure they're on the road." "They left already," she muttered, thumbs flying. "Robert drives like a turtle." Then she laughed at something on her screen. "What's so funny?" I asked gently. "It's my friends' group chat. Things you wouldn't understand." Her words stung, but I turned my face to the window. Fields passed by, golden in the winter light. I thought about the pies, the sewing, the ring I no longer wore. I told myself not to mind. After all, we were heading toward a week together. When we arrived, the Golden Palms was more beautiful than the website photos. Palm trees swayed, fountains sparkled, the white facade gleamed. "Isn't it gorgeous?" I exclaimed. Abby, my 17-year-old granddaughter, ran up and hugged me. "Grandma, this place is amazing. Did you see the pool?" Her excitement gave me a flicker of hope. Inside, the receptionist welcomed me warmly. "Mrs. Evelyn Carter, 5 family suites, all inclusive. Everything is in order." She handed me the elegant palm tree keychains. Behind me, I heard Michael whisper to Robert, "5 suites? I thought you said it'd be simpler." "Don't worry," Michael murmured. "We'll figure it out later." I turned, smiling, ready to share the moment, only to find the space behind me empty. My sons, my daughters-in-law, even the little ones. They were gone. Only Abby lingered, her face uneasy. "Where did they go?" I asked, my stomach dropping. "They went up already," Abby said quietly. "Dad said you'd meet them later." Something in her eyes told me she was hiding more. That night, in my suite, I opened my journal again. The page from 2 nights ago stared at me. This trip will be the final test. I didn't know how true those words would become. Before we dive deeper into Evelyn's story, let me pause here. Before we go further into today's dramatic story, don't forget to subscribe to Tangled Heart Stories and turn on the notification bell. Here, you will always find stories of sacrifice, betrayal, and shocking turnarounds. And tell me, where are you watching from? Drop a comment below. Who knows? The next story might remind you of your own experience. If you were in Evelyn's place, already sensing something was wrong as your family disappeared, what would you have done? Would you have confronted them immediately or waited? Her choice changed everything. The first 2 days at the hotel should have been filled with laughter, family meals, and splashes in the pool. Instead, I felt like a ghost drifting through their vacation. At breakfast, I sat at the table waiting, only to watch my sons walk past with their wives and children, heading straight to a beachside cafe without acknowledging me. At dinner, they laughed together, glasses clinking, while I was told, "Maybe you'd be more comfortable eating in your room, Mom." Each word, each sidelong glance cut deeper than the last. One evening, as I lingered by the lobby bar, Jennifer's laughter echoed behind me. "She doesn't even know how to use the hotel app," she snickered to Sarah. "Can you imagine? She still writes in a notebook like it's 1975. They both laughed, high-pitched and sharp. Heat rose to my cheeks. They thought I couldn't hear. They thought I didn't matter. I slipped outside into the cool night, the sea breeze stinging my eyes. I opened my journal and scribbled. I just wanted to sit at one table. I just wanted to belong. But the cruelest blow came on the 3rd morning. Abby lingered after breakfast, biting her lip. "Grandma," she whispered, "I need to show you something." She handed me her phone. On the screen was a group chat titled Drama-Free Vacation. The first message I saw read, "The old lady looked ridiculous at check-in, grinning like she owned the place. At least she's useful for something." My stomach churned. I scrolled further. "She'll just stay in her room watching TV. We can finally enjoy ourselves without her nagging." "Did you confirm the hotel will let us switch the reservation later?" "Perfect. We'll put everything under our names before the end. And don't worry about the bill. She won't even realize we're leaving her with it until the last day." I felt the marble floor tilt beneath me. "Grandma," Abby whispered. "They never wanted you here. Dad created this group the same day he called you. They planned this all along." Her eyes brimmed with tears. I told them it was wrong, but they said I didn't understand, that sometimes adults have to make hard choices. Hard choices? I thought. No, this was betrayal. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat by the balcony, the ocean roaring in the darkness, and turned to the first page of my journal. My handwriting wavered under the lamp. This trip will be the final test. I drew a heavy line across the words. Then, with deliberate strokes, I wrote, "No more being their puppet. No more silence." The next day confirmed everything. Michael knocked on my door, smiling too brightly. "Mom, we were thinking, maybe you should give us the spare keys to the suites, just in case there's an emergency." "What kind of emergency would require you to enter rooms that aren't yours?" I asked calmly. He blinked, startled. "Oh, just practical reasons, I looked him in the eye. "I'm 65, Michael, not 95. I can handle a few keys." For the first time, his smile faltered. That afternoon, Robert called me. His voice was casual, but too casual. "Mom, don't stress about the bill, okay? We'll settle things at the end." "It's just easier that way." The words made my skin crawl. I now knew exactly what they meant by settling. Meanwhile, the distance grew wider. At the pool, I sat on a lounge chair, clutching my hat, while Jennifer muttered to Sarah, "She looks so lost. Honestly, why does she even bother coming?" At lunch, they told the children, "Run along. Don't bother Grandma." Even little Leo, sweet as he was, asked innocently, "Mom says you like being alone, Grandma. Is that true?" My heart cracked. Out of the mouths of babes came the cruelties planted by their parents. But Abby saw me. That evening, she came to my room with her homework spread across the bed. "I don't want to sit with them," she confessed. "It feels wrong, the way they talk about you. I want to stay with you." Tears pricked my eyes. I stroked her hair. "Thank you, darling. You're the only one who makes me feel human. If you were in my place, reading those messages, hearing your children call you a burden, what would you do? Would you confront them directly? Would you pack your bags and leave? Or would you stay, waiting for the right moment?" Because that night, as I sat at my desk, pen in hand, a strange clarity filled me. I would not confront them. Not yet. I would outplay them. The plan began to form in the quiet. I made 3 calls. The first was to my bank. "Brenda," I told the representative, "I need to flag potential fraudulent disputes. My family is planning something involving my account." Her tone grew sharp with professionalism, and she promised an investigation note would be placed. The second was to the hotel manager, James Anderson. "I need a record that I am the sole reservation holder," I explained. "And if anyone tries to change anything without me, I want to be contacted immediately." His calm voice reassured me. "Of course, Mrs. Carter. We will make sure you retain full control." The third was to my old lawyer, Mr. Thompson. When I told him everything, he sighed heavily. "Evelyn, what they are doing is financial exploitation, elder abuse. If you wish, we can take legal action." I swallowed. For now, I just want to protect myself, and I want them to know I won't be silent anymore. The next morning, I dressed with care. Not in the light blue dress anymore, but in my navy suit, the one I had worn to my husband's funeral. It made me feel dignified, strong. I walked down to breakfast alone, journal tucked under my arm, and when James approached me with a polite bow, I nodded. "It's time." He led me to his office, where I signed the papers that gave me exclusive authority. He slid 2 documents across the desk, one confirming the reservation under my name, and another granting me the right to cancel or modify the rooms at will. I held the pen tightly. With a steady hand, I signed. You now have complete control, James said softly, even to cancel individual suites. I looked out the window at the pool where my family laughed, oblivious. For the first time in years, I smiled. Yes, I whispered. Cancel them. The stage was set. The betrayal was about to turn back on them. And I, Evelyn Carter, the woman they thought was powerless, was about to remind them whose name was on every key. If you've ever been underestimated, treated like you were invisible, you know this fire. Tell me in the comments, have you ever been in Evelyn's place, quietly planning your own turning point? Because tomorrow, when the clock struck 10, my family's cards would stop working, and nothing would ever be the same. The morning sun spilled gold across the balconies, the sea shimmering like glass. My family moved through the hotel grounds as if nothing was wrong. Michael and Robert sipping cocktails by the pool, Jennifer and Sarah stretched out in designer sunglasses. Their children splashed and laughed, free of the poison their parents whispered when they thought no one could hear. But my hands were steady now. For the first time in years, my heart wasn't trembling. It was beating with purpose. At breakfast, I sat alone with my coffee. The clink of cutlery, the hum of vacation chatter, the smell of butter and toast filled the air. And then Abby slid into the seat across from me. "You're different today," she said softly. I smiled at her. "Because I've decided something. This trip won't be my defeat. It will be my line in the sand." She studied me, her brown eyes fierce for someone her age. "I'll stand with you, Grandma, no matter what." My throat tightened. That promise, her courage, was more precious than the ring I'd sold, more valuable than the money I had drained away. Later, in my room, I opened my journal again. The entries from weeks past stared at me, filled with longing and grief. I drew a bold line across the page and wrote in sharp strokes, "They will not bury me in silence. I am not their puppet, not anymore." I underlined the words until the ink pressed deep into the paper. That evening, Abby returned, pale and shaken. "Grandma," she whispered, "they added something new to the group chat." She handed me her phone again. The screen glowed in the dim light. "Maybe we should hire a babysitter back home, so we never have to rely on her again." Exactly. It's time she stopped clinging to us. She doesn't belong in our lives anymore. The words chilled me more than the ocean wind. They weren't just cutting me out of this vacation, they were writing me out of their lives. I handed the phone back, my jaw set. "Abby, I need you to keep these messages safe. Tomorrow, I'll need your help." She nodded, determination replacing fear. That night, I lay awake, listening to the distant hum of waves. My mind replayed decades of sacrifice. The nights I worked double shifts while my husband was ill. The times I skipped new shoes so Michael and Robert could have soccer cleats. The birthdays where I baked cakes from scratch because money was tight. Every sacrifice had been a thread I wove into a net of love. And now I saw it clearly. They had never seen the net. They only saw the rope, something to climb on until it frayed. Tears slid down my cheeks, but they weren't just tears of grief anymore. They were the last drops of weakness I would allow. The morning of reckoning began quietly. I dressed not in my bright dresses, but in a tailored navy blouse and slacks. I braided my hair back neatly, the way I used to when I handled paperwork at the bank. Abby met me in the hallway. "Are you ready?" she asked. "Yes," I said, more ready than ever. We walked together to the manager's office. James Anderson greeted me warmly. "Mrs. Carter, everything is in place. At 10 o'clock. Thank you, I said. Then I hesitated. Mr. Anderson, one more thing. Could you print these? I slid Abby's phone across the desk, showing the venomous group chat. His brows rose. Of course. If you'd like, I can certify them as part of the guest record. That, I said, would be perfect. By 9:30, I sat in my room, the printed stack of messages on the table, my journal beside them. Abby perched on the bed, restless. They'll be furious, she whispered. They already were, I replied calmly. The difference is, today, they'll learn what it feels like to lose control. At exactly 10, the chaos began. From my balcony, I heard Jennifer shrieking, "Why won't this card work?" Robert stormed into the lobby, waving his useless key at the receptionist. "This is ridiculous. Do you know who we are?" Michael's voice thundered. "My mother's the one who made the reservation. Get her down here, now." Their panic floated upward like music to me. For once, their arrogance had no power. My phone rang. Michael's number. I let it buzz once, twice, before answering. "Mom," he snapped, "did you do something to the rooms?" "Yes," I said simply. "Why?" His voice cracked with anger. I let a pause stretch out before answering, each word crisp, because I could. There was silence on the line, then shouting, then Jennifer's voice in the background. "Make her fix it." I hung up. Abby burst out laughing, the sound pure and cathartic. "Grandma, that was perfect." Minutes later, a pounding rattled my door. Michael's voice roared, "Open this door. We need to talk." I opened it calmly. My sons, their wives, even little Leo stood in the hallway, a storm of faces. "What's the meaning of this?" Jennifer demanded. I gestured to the table. "Sit down." They hesitated, then filed in, muttering. When the door clicked shut, I picked up the stack of papers. Without a word, I dropped them on the table. Jennifer grabbed them first, her face paling as she read. Sarah leaned over her shoulder, gasping. Robert cursed under his breath. Abby folded her arms, standing tall. "You think Grandma's weak, but she's stronger than all of you." Michael looked up, his face red. "Mom, this is private. How dare you? How dare I?" My voice cut across his like a knife. "How dare you? After everything I've done, after every meal I skipped, every night I worked late, every dollar I saved, this is what you think of me?" I pulled my journal close and flipped it open, reading aloud. "All I want is to sit at one table with my family, to feel like I belong." My voice shook, but not from weakness. That was what I wrote. And this, I slapped the papers. "This is what you wrote about me." Jennifer's lips parted, but no words came. Robert muttered, "We didn't mean—" "Stop," I said sharply. "You meant every word. You called me a burden. You plotted to leave me with debt. You tried to erase me from your lives." Silence. The weight of their shame, or maybe just their fury, hung heavy in the room. Then I straightened, my voice steady. "I canceled your rooms. I kept mine. You will pack your things and leave by noon. And I will not be footing another bill for you. Not ever again. If you had been there, sitting in that room, listening to your children scramble for excuses, would you have given them another chance? Or would you have done as I did? Drawn the line once and for all?" Because in that moment, I wasn't just protecting myself. I was teaching them that betrayal has consequences. Michael's fists clenched. "You can't just throw your own family out like this." I looked at him, unflinching. "Family is love, respect, and loyalty, not blood alone. You threw me out long before I canceled those rooms." Abby slipped her hand into mine. Her presence was my shield, my proof that not all love had rotted away. For the first time in decades, I felt taller, stronger, free. And tomorrow? Tomorrow, the world would see just how far I was willing to go. The lobby clock struck 10:30. The moment of truth was no longer a secret whispered in my journal. It was unfolding in real time. From my suite, I could hear the chaos brewing downstairs. Jennifer's shrill voice carried up the marble staircase, echoing like a cracked bell. "This is outrageous. We have children with us." Robert's booming anger followed. "Call security. This is a mistake." And then Michael's voice, tighter, edged with panic. "It's not a mistake. It's her. She did this." James Anderson, the hotel manager, called to confirm. "Mrs. Carter, the suites are locked. Your family is demanding answers." "Thank you, James," I replied evenly. "You may direct them to me." The pounding on my door returned, harder this time, shaking the frame. I opened it slowly. My family flooded into the room like a tidal wave, voices overlapping, accusations, excuses, outrage. "How could you humiliate us like this?" Jennifer snapped. "You've crossed the line, Mom," Michael growled. "Do you know how embarrassing this is for us?" Sarah whined. I let them rage. I let their words fill the air until they ran out of breath. Then, with deliberate calm, I placed the stack of printed messages on the table again. "Sit," I said. They didn't want to, but something in my voice made them obey. I picked up the top page and read aloud. "At least she's good for something. She can pay while we enjoy ourselves." I looked directly at Jennifer. Her face reddened. Another line. "Switch the names before the end. Leave her holding the debt." My gaze shifted to Michael. His jaw tightened. And then, "Hire a babysitter when we're home. No need for her anymore." Robert looked away. "Do these words sound familiar?" I asked. Silence. "They should," I continued, "because they are yours. Every insult, every plan, every betrayal, you wrote them. And now, they're on hotel record, certified by management." James Anderson himself stepped forward from the doorway where he had quietly entered. He held another copy of the papers. "This documentation is filed under the reservation," he said. "If there is any dispute, Mrs. Carter has the right to pursue legal action." Jennifer paled. "Legal action?" "Yes," I said firmly. "Elder financial exploitation, fraud, abuse. Words I never thought I'd have to use about my own children." Michael stood suddenly, slamming his hands on the table. "You can't do this to us. We're your family." I rose to my feet, meeting his fury with a steadiness I didn't know I possessed. "Family? Family doesn't steal from one another. Family doesn't laugh at sacrifice. Family doesn't plan to abandon their own mother with a mountain of debt." I leaned closer, my voice low and sharp. "You threw me out of your hearts long before I threw you out of this hotel." The room froze. Even little Leo, who had been clinging to Sarah's skirt, stared up at me with wide eyes. "Mom!" Robert's voice cracked. For a fleeting second, I saw the boy he once was, the one who used to cry when scraped knees bled. But then his face hardened. "Fine, do what you want. You'll regret it." "No," I said softly. "The only regret I carry is waiting this long to stand up for myself." At 11 sharp, hotel staff arrived. Polite but firm, they requested that my sons and their families vacate the suites. Jennifer protested. Sarah pleaded. Michael argued until his voice was hoarse. But none of it mattered. Their cards were dead. Their reservation was gone. Luggage piled up in the lobby. Passers-by stopped to watch the spectacle. Two well-dressed couples, children in tow, red-faced and fuming as their matriarch stood calmly beside the manager. I descended the staircase slowly, Abby by my side. Every eye in the lobby followed us. My sons glared daggers, but I didn't falter. Michael rushed toward me. Mom, think about what you're doing. Where will we even go? I paused at the bottom step, looked at him, and answered with quiet power, That's not my problem anymore. Jennifer hissed, This is cruel. You're ruining the family. I turned to her. No, the family was ruined when respect was replaced with greed. And then I delivered the line that had been burning in me for days. I canceled those rooms because I could, and because I finally realized that love, when twisted into chains, only breeds monsters. The lobby went silent. Abby squeezed my hand, her voice ringing clear. Grandma doesn't need to explain herself. You should all be ashamed. Her words cracked the last fragile shell of denial. Michael looked away. Robert muttered something under his breath. Jennifer dabbed at her eyes with a tissue, but not out of remorse, out of embarrassment. Sarah simply stared at the floor. The taxi I had arranged pulled up outside. The driver, a kind man with salt and pepper hair, stepped in to help with Abby's bags. I turned once more to my sons. You wanted me erased from this vacation. Instead, you've erased yourselves. Goodbye. And with that, Abby and I walked out into the sunlight. From the window of the cab, I saw them standing in a cluster, their luggage beside them, faces twisted with anger and humiliation. The very people who had plotted to leave me stranded were now stranded themselves. Abby leaned against me, whispering, You did it, Grandma. You showed them. I kissed her forehead. No, Abby, we did it. Because you stood with me when no one else would. As the taxi rolled away, the hotel faded into the distance. For the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel like an afterthought. I felt free. If you were in that lobby, watching Evelyn Carter walk out with her head high, while the ones who betrayed her stood powerless, what would you have felt? Anger? Satisfaction? Relief? Tell me in the comments. Would you have had the courage to do the same, or would you have given them another chance? Because sometimes justice doesn't come from courts or lawyers. Sometimes it comes from finally saying, enough. Tomorrow would be a new beginning. But tonight, I had one last page to write in my journal, and it wouldn't be written in sorrow. It would be written in triumph. The cab wove through palm-lined streets, leaving the glittering facade of Golden Palms Hotel behind us. For a long moment, neither Abby nor I spoke. The weight of what had happened still hung between us, like the hush after a storm when branches are broken, but the air feels cleansed. Abby finally broke the silence. Grandma, she whispered, are you okay? I looked out at the horizon where the ocean kissed the sky. For the first time in years, I said, I am. She leaned her head against my shoulder, and I held her hand tightly. The taxi stopped at a smaller inn on the quieter side of the coast. Whitewashed walls, hanging baskets of flowers, a little courtyard shaded by olive trees. It wasn't glamorous, but it was peaceful, and peace was what I craved. James Anderson, the hotel manager, had arranged the reservation personally. Something comfortable, where you can truly rest, he had said kindly. The owner greeted us warmly. Mrs. Carter, welcome. We've prepared a room for you and your granddaughter. Breakfast is served in the garden each morning. It felt like walking into another world, one where I wasn't a burden or a wallet, but simply a guest. That evening, Abby and I sat on the terrace, sipping lemonade as the sun sank low. For the first time all week, I heard her laugh, not the nervous giggle she gave around her parents, but a free, bubbling laugh that filled the air. You know what Dad's going to say when we get home? She grinned. He'll say you embarrassed him. I smiled faintly. Let him. Some truths are meant to embarrass. We sat in silence for a while, listening to cicadas. Then Abby's voice softened. Grandma, thank you for standing up. You showed me that it's okay to draw lines, even with family. Her words made my throat tighten. That was the legacy I wanted. Not money, not rings, not houses. Boundaries, strength, the courage to say enough. Later, I opened my journal again. The page from the first night of the trip stared at me. This will be the final test. Below it, I wrote, and I passed. Not because I punished them, but because I chose myself. I will no longer measure my worth in how much I sacrifice, but in how much I respect myself. I closed the book and slid it into Abby's hands. Someday, this will remind you of who you stood beside, and why. Meanwhile, back at Golden Palms, my family's humiliation only grew. Word traveled fast in luxury hotels. Guests whispered about the family kicked out of their suites. Some filmed Jennifer's shrieking argument at the front desk, uploading it to social media. Michael called me that night. I let the phone ring until voicemail. His message was clipped, furious. You've gone too far. You'll regret this. But the truth was, I didn't regret a single thing. The next morning, Abby and I walked along the shoreline. Waves lapped at our ankles, gulls cried overhead. She picked up shells, laughing when the foam chased her back. Do you feel lighter now? She asked. I nodded. Yes, because I finally learned something that took me 65 years. Blood does not guarantee respect. Respect must be earned, and if it isn't given, then distance is better than chains. If you were me, standing there with the ocean stretching wide, your heart both bruised and free, what would you have felt? Relief? Bitterness? Or perhaps, like me, a strange gratitude for the pain that finally taught you to let go? Tell me in the comments. I want to know how you would carry this ending. On our last night, Abby curled up beside me. Grandma, do you think they'll ever change? I stroked her hair. Maybe. Maybe not. But that's no longer my responsibility. My responsibility is to live the rest of my life in truth, and to teach you never to accept less than the respect you deserve. She nodded sleepily. I promise. I kissed her forehead. In that moment, I knew, even if my sons never came back to me, even if apologies never crossed their lips, I had not lost everything. I still had the love of one granddaughter and the self-respect I thought had died years ago. The day we returned home, I didn't invite my sons to visit. I didn't open my door to their pounding fists or answer their bitter calls. Instead, I sat by my window with a cup of tea, journal in hand, and breathed freely. Across the street, the neighbors waved. Life went on, and so would I. If you are watching this, maybe you've been Evelyn. Maybe you've sold your ring, your time, your health, your dignity, just to be loved. Maybe you've been called a burden by the very people you raised. But listen to me now. Your sacrifices were not wasted. They built lives, even if those lives forgot their roots. And you, yes, you, deserve more than crumbs of respect. Sometimes love means drawing a line. Sometimes love means walking away. And sometimes the greatest revenge is simply reclaiming your peace. Respect isn't given by blood. It's earned through love and kindness. And if your family refuses to see your worth, don't dim your light just to make them comfortable. You are not invisible. You are not disposable. If this story touched you, tell me, have you ever faced a moment where you realized you had to choose yourself? What happened when you did? Share your story in the comments. Here, you are not alone. And before you go, remember, don't forget to subscribe to Tangled Heart Stories and hit that notification bell. At this channel, you'll always find stories of sacrifice, betrayal, and the powerful turnarounds that remind us justice, even in families, is worth fighting for.